A very pleasant morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Harini Vikramaratsi, your host for the event. Before we begin the session, I would kindly remind you, please mute your microphones and your video cameras because to avoid any disturbances that are happening. So I would like to warmly welcome all of you to the Skill Up Leadership Program organized by the Department of Marketing of KIU. On behalf of KIU, I would like to warmly welcome our keynote speaker for this program, Mr. Sanjay Pereira, the Senior Vice President of NDB Bank. All heads and assistant heads of departments of KIU, lecturers, and my dear students. KIU Sri Lanka is a premier degree awarding institute accredited by the Ministry of Higher Education and recognized by the University Grants Commission of Sri Lanka, offering most modern and advanced bachelor's honors degrees in a variety of study fields. Inspiring excellence, KIU Sri Lanka is all about producing a fully skilled individual to the nation. There's a famous quote by a former First Lady of the United States, Miss Rosalind Carter. She says that a leader takes people where they want to go, but a great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. So we at KIU have organized this virtual leadership program even during this pandemic period to motivate all of you and to give you a little something that is worth for your life. So once again, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Mr. Sanjay Pereira, the Senior Vice President of NDB Bank. Before I hand over the virtual stage to him, I would like to give you all a brief introduction about our keynote speaker. Mr. Sanjay Pereira accounts for over 28 years of extensive experience in the field of banking, specializing in the field of retail banking, SME banking, and audit. He has obtained his MBA from the University of Sri Jayewardenepura, and he is a fellow of the Institute of Bankers of Sri Lanka. He is also a past finalist of the Association of Accounting Technicians. So dear audience, if you have any questions for our keynote speaker, please do not hesitate to drop it in the chat box. So without any further ado, I would like to hand over this virtual stage to our keynote speaker, Mr. Sanjay Pereira. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, right. So what I will do is, first of all, let me thank the management of KIU, Dr. Jagat Dilhara, for inviting me to do a presentation this morning. And I'm very pleased, and I have seen how KIU has grown from the beginning, and it's very creditable, and the vision of Dr. Jagat has actually given a lot of merit, and to give our Sri Lankan students the opportunity to study and get qualified in Sri Lanka itself than going overseas and learning. So I think as participants, congratulations, you all have taken the right decision to join KIU and get yourselves qualified in whatever the areas that you are most interested in and to pursue a career. Well, the reason why we need to get qualified is to finally find a job and to grow very successfully in your life span. So it's a very critical juncture in your lifespan that you get skilled and rightly qualified to reach a job. So most of you have taken this great decision, and almost all of you will get qualified within the next 1 year or within the next 4 years as per your um, stay in KIU, and after the examinations you will get graduated in your own field. Now the challenge that you have is once you get qualified, how do you find a job? That's your ultimate goal. Um, so when you go for interviews, it is very important that you have the necessary background to be selected. Now, when you get qualified and when you have a degree, you know that you have some qualification, and as a result, you think that when you go to a job, you will get it. But when you go to a job, when you go for an interview after applying, you will realize that in that job, there are so many competitors with you. And most of those competitors are maybe equally qualified as much as you are qualified. So it is again a competition, and you have to impress the panel. If there are entrance tests, you have to get through that entrance test again, and also impress the panel to be standing out from the rest of the people. Mind you, it might be one job or many positions, but if it's one job, it will be that much difficult for you to get a job. So it is very important that from now onwards you are quite conversant with what the corporate world requires you to perform. Getting a qualification now, if you look at the traditional degree from a government university, once you get that qualification, now I would say the cream of Sri Lanka gets into the university, the government university. But unfortunately, once they are qualified, except for medicine and engineering, the rest of the degrees, when they go to the corporate world, sometimes it may not be relevant for that particular job. So therefore, you are required to have the attitude of being willing to learn from the job you are assigned. Now, if you think that I have a degree and I know everything, now that's where you are going to fail. You have a degree, that's very good, but then that particular job will be different to what you have learned probably, or you don't have the experience. Now today in the field of banking, for an example, I will have experience. But if I go to another job tomorrow, just because I have over 30 years of experience in banking, that job will require me to learn what is required from them. So you've got to think, and you have to have that right attitude to learn, be able to learn from even a junior staff member, because you have to get used to that environment. So that is very important. So once you say that you get the job, now if you recall your entire life, from the time you were born, your parents would have been very happy that they have got a child, a daughter or a son. And then when it comes to schooling, your parents would have tried to put you to the best possible school in the country. You know how difficult it is to get a good school. Now, say that you got the best school. Now, when you get the best school, that doesn't mean that your life is successful. In that school, when you go, you will have equally able students competing with you. And then you should be able to have a different skill to outshine the rest. And then it comes to exams, the scholarship exam, the O levels, the A levels, which are the examinations that we go through, and that too only a certain percentage of students will get qualified or will excel. And after that, you get into the uni. Getting selected to a university is also very difficult. After that, you get yourself qualified. Now there you will try to get a first class or a second class upper, or just get through. Again, there is a category. That's where the competition stands. From the day we were born, there is competition, even among your relations. Right? So, um, so once you get that job, again, you will encounter people with right skills and equal status. So how do you outshine the rest in your office? That again, you have to learn. As I told, you have to have the right attitude. Now, something when you go to a job, something that you cannot select is your boss. Now, you have no choice. If you're lucky, you will get a great boss. If you're unlucky, you will get a very tough boss. Now, you don't have a choice. You can't go to the company and say, you can't go to the HR and say, I don't like this boss, I need a different boss. How do you go from that company then? So, in different uh, phases of your career, you will encounter different superiors. But what you need to learn is they have become superiors because they have got the right skill. So there is no point in trying to compare him or her with you. You might say, I'm more qualified than him, why is he my supervisor? If you have that attitude, you'll never learn. What you need to do is, as a subordinate, you need to acquire the skills as fast as possible and do even better than him. Not to outshine him, but to have the courage to do well. Now, sometimes your supervisor, if he is good, he might go to his boss and say that so and so is doing very well. But there are also supervisors who will never go and tell that. He or she would like to get the credit from his boss than going and saying it is this particular person who did this. Now again, you have no choice. You will be very sad to hear that. You will be always saying, I'm the one who's doing the dirty work and that person is getting credit. Let it be. Because it is very important that you do the right thing. And these are learnings for you when you become a supervisor. Because when you have a degree, your speed of becoming a supervisor will be much faster than a person who joins the institute, whatever the institute it is, with the basic qualifications like A levels or O levels. So you need to have that right skill. That is very, very important. And now you need to become a leader and not a manager. What is the difference between a leader and a manager? A manager can be a manager at any organization with or without skills. There are so many managers. Now, your organization, where you work, your university, there are so many managers. Because without managers, you can't run an organization. But that doesn't mean that all of them are leaders. Now, we have seen countries which are successful. Why is that? Every country has a president or a prime minister. But why is only few countries are prospecting? The prosperity comes with the leader. Take a cricket team, a rugby team. You see, it is not only, I mean, if you look at different countries, all of them are talented. They know how to bat. They know how to field. You don't have to teach them how to touch the bat or hit a six. They all know that. It's the same. But why do some teams win always? Because of the leadership. So a leader should always have empathy. So you must always remember the day you started working. You would have got a good boss or a bad boss. And what did you feel when you had to work under that particular person? Now, once you get your opportunity to become a boss or a leader, you should always remember the way you started, what you learned, and always give that opportunity to that particular person. And that's where the satisfaction comes. And for you as a leader, you would always get that credit in the future. It may not be in the shorter period, but in the longer run, you will definitely get that. And I'm speaking with experience. Working for 30 years is not easy. And if you want to grow, you can grow by being a great leader. Because your people need a pat on the back. Always. Even at our ages, we still need appreciation. Now, if you don't appreciate your people, they will not work for you. They will do what they are supposed to do, but they will not work wholeheartedly. So always give credit. Give advice when it is needed, but you need to part that appreciation. But you take it for granted, and then you will lose such employees. People don't leave organizations mostly for salaries or um, not that they don't like that company. People leave leaders. People leave bosses. In your area, if you have 10 people and if 8 have left, the problem is not with them, the problem is with you. You need to keep on evaluating about yourself whether you are doing the right thing. It is very, very important because you sometimes tend to say that you're doing the best. You always think that you're right, but you're not. If you go for an argument with your counterpart or with your subordinate or with your boss, when you come back, you might realize that you have done the wrong thing. So always be prepared to evaluate yourself whether you are doing the right thing or wrong thing, or whether there is improvement. Because we are so confident in ourselves, we think that what we say is right. And when you release a word, think twice. If you tell your subordinate get out, and that you have released it, after that if you come back and say I'm sorry, you have already hurt that particular person, and that cannot be taken back. So therefore, it is very important that the choice of words that you use, even when there is a debate for the betterment of the organization, doesn't mean that you should not debate. In an organization, especially the management committee meetings, you need to raise your opinion because it is not always saying, boss, you're right. Your boss also might fall into the same trap with you if he is also not corrected. So you need to have the guts to go and say, sir, with all due respect, you are making a mistake here. Some people would like to take that, some people will not. But there is a way of saying that. Don't go and then don't come back and tell your colleagues, I'm the one who corrected you. That's not going to work. So it's all a team. And the team should perform individually for a team to be successful. So my experience is now if you look at when the leader is focused and you have the right people in the right place, your organization will automatically be successful. You don't have to, once a job is given to a particular person, you don't have to micromanage. If you have to micromanage, then there's a problem with that employee or there's a problem with you. First find out whether the problem is with the employee, then there is a skill gap, which you as the leader should educate that particular person and give advice and keep on monitoring. Now, if that person is not changing, then of course you have to take rash decisions. It is not always mollycoddling people. This organization, wherever you are, has to grow, and that's your responsibility. So it is very important that you do that correction immediately. And that's for the betterment of the organization. If not, then there is a problem with the direction. Then you look at the mirror and check whether you're right. And if you're wrong, you need to be humble enough to accept that. You don't have to go and tell everybody I'm wrong, but you accept the fact, and then if you accept it, you will definitely correct yourself. If not, you're going in the wrong path. That is very, very important. It is true for the managing director, the manager, the leader, the president, the prime minister, anybody. So if you don't do that, you see what happens, the problems that we encounter as a citizen. What do we encounter? There are skilled people in one area who advise us the others. And if you think that you know everything and get onto the shoes of them, you're going to mess it up. That's why you have medical experts, you have legal experts, you have financial experts. You're not the expert in everything. Now, if you're a managing director or if you're the head of the organization, you're not going to be skilled in all areas. You're not the best in HR, you're not the best in marketing, you're not the best in finance. That's why you have skilled people in those areas, and you have to make sure to get the best out of those people. And if I go to correct the double entry that your financial controller has put, you're going to mess it up big time. So therefore, I think as a leader, you should have empathy, which I was talking about. And also as a leader, you should lead from the front. You can't let your people face the music. Inter-department, there can be conflict. Inter-company, there can be conflict. And you should have the guts to stand for them. And also, even if they make a mistake or there is some injustice happening, you should be able to stand for your people. Then they will say, my God, our boss will always protect us. You can, if they have made a mistake, you can go and blast them off within your department. But when you come out, you need to take the responsibility for what has happened. There's no point in saying so and so did the wrong thing, therefore I am not taking the responsibility. That's not a leader. And if it is successful, always try to give the credit to that person who has done it. Don't try to take credit for what you have not done. You would ultimately get the credit because your department is successful, but you don't have to go and tell your boss, I'm the one who did it. There are so many people who do it, and they think in the short term they are being successful. They are not. And I think, and the other is there are, as I told you, there are skilled people. So as a leader, you should be able to learn from them. You're not the jack of all trades. There can be a creative person. If you're doing marketing, I would think that the advertisement should be like this. But there could be a very creative person who has joined the organization yesterday. He or she would have come and told you, if you do like this, because they have new thinking. Now we are accustomed to one direction. We are used to that. That environment you get used to. Somebody who comes 1 day or 2 days before, who are not settled down, has their own ideas. Don't never scoff at them. because they have great ideas. If it is so, take it on board because you have the experience to know whether it is in line with your organization vision and your culture, right? And so those are the few things that you need to learn as a leader. That is very important for your success. But why I am saying this is you are going to be a leader very soon because you are starting your career with a qualification. Right? You're not going to be at the entry level. So therefore, it is very important that you learn this because I don't think, say, in your own degree, you learn all this unless it is management or some other area. Now, if you look at the other skilled areas, you will not learn all this. Right? You will learn the basics of it's nursing. You will learn the basics of it's about medicine altogether. So all of them needs to be leaders. So that is what is very, very important. And I think the other thing I want to emphasize is you join an organization. Have you heard people from the day they join, they criticize the organization? There are people who keep on criticizing organization, but they are there inside. If you are in an organization, that organization pays you a salary, and your family, yourself, live on that salary. And you should always appreciate it is thanks to you, thanks to the organization that you are living a comfortable life. If I ask all of you whether your salary is enough, you will never say it's enough. It will never be. To get 10 million today, you will be happy only for today. Tomorrow you have expenses for 11 million. If your salary is increased tomorrow to 100 million, you will be happy only on that particular day. And your expenses go up to 150 million. You will want to buy a Rolls Royce. Earlier you were happy with a Maruti. See, your wants and needs keep on increasing. But you must be thinking your boss or your chairman is having a very comfortable life. He's getting this much of a salary. So when he says be happy in your organization, you say, "Ayata nam puluwa." So they are logo padiyak hambo. But if you ask him, it's the same thing. It is the life that you go through. We started, my salary, the first salary in the bank was 2,500 rupees. I would have saved more with that than what I save now. Don't ask my salary now, but it's definitely more than 2,500. But have I got then from 2,500, if you have, say, for an example, you have 500,000 or 1 million or 2 million, then probably if you are lived with 2,500, your balance should be in your bank account. Is that the reality? Definitely not. It's not. So therefore, what you get, you have to be happy and you have to respect that organization and give 100% to the organization. If you're unhappy, find a job and leave. That's fine because we always change our careers for betterment of all. We are not married to the organization, right? But even if you're unhappy, until you find another job, you're still being paid a salary here. If you don't do what you are supposed to do for that, then you're actually stealing the organization, I would say. If you don't do for your salary the work that you're supposed to do, then I would say you're a rogue. That's why I'm saying if you're not happy, then of course you find a job. Until then, you are being fed by this organization. And also in your career, There are so many things given free in your organization. Don't take anything home. Now see, government officers, they are given ballpoint pens, A4 sheets, photocopies, all are freely available in your organization. If your child wants a pen tomorrow or 100 A4 sheets, if you're taking that particular carbon pen, a ballpoint pen from the organization, you're stealing. It may be very, very small. The organization will not even realize that you have used it. But what it should be used to the organization, take it. But don't give it to your child. The child will not succeed. That 10 rupees, I'm sure you can afford to. Or a 3 rupee A4 sheet, you can afford to do it. But it is the mentality that you have. And the child will learn that my mother or my father brought this from the organization. And what is the teaching that you're giving to that particular child? Is that what he or she is going to carry forward? So your discipline is very, very important. Sometimes you may not afford to even buy. Sometimes you're definitely broke. Maybe your salary is on the 25th, 25th, 24th. Your son comes and say, I want an exercise book. It will be very stressful for you. You may not have even the money to go and purchase the ticket for the bus. But wait at least one day and buy that for you. And that's why you need to learn in your life, whatever the salary you get, you save some amount of money for a rainy day. Look at Sri Lanka. If you're close for 7, now we have worked for more than now. I have worked for 30 days, 30 years. And if I complain to the government that when there is travel restrictions for 2 weeks, that I don't have money to eat, what have we been doing all these years? Whose fault is that? The government? I believe nobody should be given 5,000 rupees if there is curfew for 2 weeks. And if you have not done it, then it is your fault. You don't need hundreds of thousands rupees to save. If you get 100 rupees, save 1 rupee. And look at for 30 years how much you have saved. That's the discipline. If you don't do that, you will never. There are people who are retired who are in debt. It cannot happen. But don't fear to take debts when it is needed. For your house, take a housing loan. Otherwise, the banks won't survive. That's a commercial appeal that I'm doing. But I'm telling you, even borrowing, you have to do, you should evaluate yourself whether you can manage. So just because the bank says, I can give you 10 million to buy a house, see what the installment is and see whether you can manage with your balance pay, whether you can live a life which is quite comfortable. It may not be very, very comfortable all the time, but at least have your food and your basic needs. If you can't do that, then that's not the amount. Then you have to go to a different location. Just because your friend has a house in Colombo 7, don't try to buy a house in Colombo 7. If you can, great, do it. But every one of us can't afford it. So some may take it, we going out of Colombo, some may be Battaramulla, some will go to Aturugiriya, some will go even further, but doesn't matter. But it should fit your pocket. It's not a showing off, it's your basic need that is needed. So these are disciplines that you should have in your lifestyle. Change your lifestyle according to your income. You can't always compete with others, your friends, you might say, if you look at some of the politicians, most of them are not qualified as much as you are qualified. But look at their vehicles. Have a look at your vehicle. So you will say, I'm qualified. What is happening to me? That's fine. If they are not taken it properly, they will have to pay it back. Right? So don't try to compare, or even in your organization, when you are getting a salary. Now, I have seen so many complaints when there are salary increments, promotions. Some of we actually sit for grievances in the organization after a session of promotions or after a session of year-end appraisals. There are grievances, and we have to listen to them. And most of these people say, I'm happy with my salary, but my friend is getting a bigger salary than me. I'm always asking, why are you comparing with your friend? Don't even check other salaries. You should be happy with your salary. If you try to compare with your neighbor, you will never be happy. You will always say, he or she is getting better than me. There should be a reason for that. Some may be justifiable, some may not. So leave it at that. You focus on your job, you focus on your objective, and always try to excel in that. In the longer run, you will definitely succeed. I must tell you my own example, the experience that I have, but I'm not telling you to everybody to do right from the beginning. I never worked for promotions. I never look at when I get promoted, my next promotion is that, what should I do to get that? You have to be career minded. I must tell you that, right? When you are starting, especially a job, you need to be career minded. You need to grow in your organization. But those things come at the right time for you. Don't try, because when you try to be so stressful about it, you will tend to cut somebody off. You will try to identify, this one is my barrier for my career growth, so I should cut it. Go to the boss and say, this one is bad, this one is bad, this one is bad. Right? Or when somebody gets a promotion, you will be unhappy and you will say, I'm not going to work from tomorrow. Why should I work for this organization? Your boss will not even realize that. Does your boss always come and ask, are you unhappy with your organization? It doesn't matter to him. Right? It is only you who will suffer if you're not happy. In the morning when you get up, you should be very happy to get ready and come to work. If not, that's not the right place. Because you should be, because when you come to work, forget about the homework and do 100% at office. And when you do that, leave the organization, don't take the organization home. Be 100% with your family. We tend to mix this up. We go home and try to do office work. We don't do the homework properly. You don't attend to your family, and then part of it you bring back to office tomorrow and then try to set it up. Right? Your daughter's homework or son's homework you start doing at office. And then you're stressed out, then you take office work to home. Keep it as that. Some it's not practical sometimes, but try to take that discipline. If you learn that discipline, you will succeed. Don't mix it up. Don't just show your boss that you're working till late. It's not productive. Right? Start work early morning and then finish off what you're supposed to do and then leave at that. Don't take problems home. And you have enough of problems at home to encounter and solve, and don't bring that also to office. So it's not going to work. Right? Nobody is there to solve those things. So even a female, a mother, can have a successful career if you have this. Um, if you can separate the two activities, the mother's role and the role of an officer. There is no barrier for that. So that is, I think, one of the key things that you need to remember. Uh, I think those are the few things. I don't know whether it's too much, but this is the simple experience that I have. And if I have grown in the career, the reason for that is these few things that you need to remember. So that doesn't mean that I'm the most successful person, because there are people who have been more successful than me. As I told you, there is no point in comparing them. You have to be happy and you have to think that you are successful. So I'm happy to take any questions if there are. And thank you very much once again for listening to me and having patience in waiting such a long time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjay Pereira, for your very beneficial, informative session today. So I hope that our audience got the maximum benefit out of him today. I think it's now the time for us to move on to the Q&A session. The audience, if you have any questions, you can drop in the chat section and I can read it out to Mr. Sanjay. Seems like we don't have any questions. The audience, if you have any questions, you can ask. We can spare a couple of more minutes for you. Okay, we have one more question for you, sir. Someone wants to know, I will read out the question. They're asking, Dear sir, what are the possible focused skills by the nowadays organizations to recruit the employees?
Yeah, it all depends on the organization, what the job is. So what I told was, of course, you should have the basic qualifications to apply for that job. But what we will look at is it will be more or less same for most organizations. Uh, Actually, it is the attitude, the soft skills that you need to develop. Your attitude, your willingness to, now if you take a bank, the first question that have we will ask is that you are willing to work anywhere in the organization. As you know, we have over 100 branches. Now, if you say, no, I want to work only in this place, then your avenues are going to be uh, limited. So you have to have that right attitude. Now, of course, we all like to work near, close to our home. But it will not happen always. But also from the organization point of view, also we don't do it haphazardly. So your willingness to learn, your willingness to work anywhere, your commitment, your background, whether it suits the job, your attitude towards customers, which is very, very important. Although I say your boss will be different, actually your boss is the customer. Where the customer decides to recruit you, sack you, pay your salary, increase your salary. The organization cannot increase your salaries if there are no customers. So once you get the job, you need to always, when the customer comes, the customer will be sometimes unreasonable, very tough, scold you for nothing, but he's always the customer. And I'm paid by him. So cope up. Within your limitations, you need to make him satisfied, him or her as the customer. You otherwise, unhappy customer, one or two, three or four, you will lose your job finally. There is no managing director if there are no customers. There is no chairman if there are no customers. What is there to talk about us if there are no customers? I hope I answered your question.
So we have a few more questions if you would like to take it. Yeah, I will read it out to you then. If the question is, if any injustice happens in the organization, how to come up with and talk of it if most people do help the injustice, and also how to be a responsible leader and take decisions accordingly.
Yeah, so there can be injustice because it all depends on the organization. But you need to be able to raise it. You should have the guts to go and tell somebody. Now, if the injustice is happening by your first supervisor, then sometimes it is not worth going and telling that particular person. But of course, you can informally tell him or her. But if he doesn't listen, sometimes he might correct himself. If he doesn't listen, then you have to go to the next level. Next level or the next level, or there are different ways of going. And so there are, see, the point is the organization also have to have that environment for you to raise them. I know it is very difficult for you as a new entrant to go and talk of something which is injustice. I mean, how are you going to work after that? But the organizations also, you as leaders should have that environment. You have to create that environment that anybody can come and complain to anybody or raise something. So that's why there are sometimes avenues where there are forums like there are grievance committees. There is always then there is whistleblowing policy for a corporation. Those are things where you can even anonymously complain or raise it, or even maybe with your own name you can, see, as much as possible you have to raise as a person, not anonymously, because anonymously when something comes, you can't go back and get further information. So because, and also anonymous letters will always be like mudslinging. Somebody can write against me also, but somebody who really sees something wrong can always put the name. But of course, that environment also needs to be there in this organization. But don't fear to raise it. But again, within your limits. So there is a way of raising it.
So there's another question asking, as a new graduate, how should our students adhere with the organization culture properly?
Yeah, again, I think when you are applying also, you should be able to have some idea of the culture. Because if it doesn't suit you, the organization is not going to change that culture for you. So there are more Western type cultures, then there are sort of more colonial type cultures. Sometimes you have to say sir. Some organization they say you can call even your CEO with the first name. It depends on that particular organization. So you need to get adjusted, and I mean, as a young graduate, you should be able to get adjusted to that culture. But if you don't like that culture, then of course you can't adjust. I mean, there can be traditional your 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 culture at home may be very different to the culture of the organization. So then that's not the right place for you to work. So, but there are cultures in different organizations, but you will have a general idea what the culture is when you see. You will do some homework before you apply, right? Not just because if you ABC corporation companies advertise, you could now there are a lot of, I mean, during our times we didn't have that access. Now you can Google and see what the organization is, their policies. Now even in to go to internet in a recognized corporation, they will have their grievance policies, the whistleblowing policies, the culture, all that you can assess by doing it. See, the point is don't go so much into that. Now, if you decide you are going overseas, you are going to USA from Sri Lanka, that culture is so different. Now, you are not going to change that culture. You are going to get adjusted there, right? So you need to be able to do that here as well.
So there's another question for you. I think most of us would like to know this. Somebody wants to know, would like to know how an interviewer could phrase their weaknesses in a way that wouldn't necessarily look like weaknesses, because interviewers tend to ask a lot about weaknesses of the interviewees.
Yeah, so ideally the interviewer should also not ask what are your weaknesses. It should always be, see again, it's the culture. Generally what we will ask is sometimes where do you think that you can improve? No one is weak, but there are areas that we can improve. Now if you do a 360-degree evaluation, when you raise up in the ladder, sometimes these methods are there to find out who you are. Now there are also now if you say you are a perfect leader, even that perfect leader will have areas that can improve. I may be backward sometimes. I may be introvert or extrovert. So whether that now in an organization you need both introverts and extroverts. You need dogs and cats. That's where a successful organization will go. If all are introverts, then it's not going to move. If all are extroverts, that is also not going to move because they will keep on arguing, nothing will happen. Right? So it should be areas that are improved. It is okay for you to say that if that interviewer asks you what are your areas for improvement, uh, well, don't try to over exhibit yourself, but you say let maybe I am extrovert sometimes, but you should have a method of saying that this is what I am doing to improve yourself also. But if you go and say I am perfect, then that is also not going to work for you, where there are no perfect people. So you should evaluate yourself before you go to the interview, saying that what are your skills, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. Out of those weaknesses, you must say maybe uh, I have to learn about customer service, because you can't expect somebody to be thorough in customer service just after doing the degree, where you have learned something else. Right? So which I am willing to learn. That's how you should present. It's the way you present. Those are asked sometimes. I don't think those are direct questions you need to ask, but then interviewers also, you have different skills. The way you walk, the way you speak is enough to evaluate a person. So those questions are asked, may not be the answer is very crucial, but it is to see your communication skills, your attitude, how you react, stress levels. Sometimes some interviewers put a lot of stress on you to see what your reaction is. Because that job may require a little bit of pressure. It depends on the job.
So there's another more question focused on interviews. Someone wants to know what is your advice for early career selectors when it comes to salary? In the interview, they are asked for expected salary, and what should be the answer that the interviewee should say?
Well, if you're going for the first time for a job, you should not be telling a salary. But if you have a job already and you're changing your job, then obviously we must say that I'm getting this much now and I'm looking for a salary enhancement, right? And but if you're going for the first time, because that is something that will be discussed. Actually, what is happening is first you need to be impressing the interviewers, and you should get selected to talk about the salary. If you're working somewhere and then you're selected, uh, then HR will call you and ask, you're selected, congratulations, and what are you expecting? Then you can keep on demanding. Then you come to a settlement where, I mean, if it's not worth leaving the job, then you won't take that job. But if you're going for the first time, your objective should be to find a job first. Now, that job may not give you the right salary, but then if it's a reputed organization, now say for an example, you join a bank or a reputed company like John Keells or Haley's, your salary may not be as much as you join maybe a unknown company. You might get 100,000 in an unknown company, but if you go to John Keells, you might get 50,000. For an example, I'm just telling you. But if you go for that 100,000, then what is next? So when you go for a job next time, if you say I have been at John Keells or MAS, see that is a thing that you will get as an exposure. Your people think that for you to survive in an organization like that, you have certain amount of skills. So you have to find what that organization also. And my advice is don't demand on the salary for the first time. So they will give a reasonable salary, and if they don't give it, then of course don't accept the offer. But your objective should be to find a job as soon as possible. It's very difficult because when we left school, I think especially when you go to a good school, you think that when you wear your college tie and go for interviews those days during our times, you get the job. It doesn't happen that way. And then only you get stressed up when you don't get a job. So first you have to find a job as soon as possible, and then look at whether you're happy or you have to gain some experience. That's what is very, very important.
So we have a few more questions coming up. I hope I can direct it to you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, someone wants to know how to look into the concept of digitalization in an organization.
Yeah, so digitalization is a buzzword for every organization now. Some organizations do it correctly, some organizations say digital for the sake of saying. Now, digitalization is the way forward, definitely, for any corporation, any company. But digitalization is also very expensive. The investment is very expensive. So you should know to evaluate the cost and benefits, and then decide on digitalization. Now that will be done at a very senior level, but digitalization you should be quite aware what it is. Now, when we started work, there were no computers. I mean, computers were there, but it was not so much as what we have now. Then we were taught to use Excel, and that Excel was also very basic, Word and Excel. Today we have, if you don't know to touch a computer, you will not get a job. So you need to have that skill, because that's the way forward. Uh, but you should have a general idea of digitalization and also what to do. I mean, not to that extent, but see, now even medical profession is now digitalized, right? You can channel a doctor through Vodafone or something. Now banking, you don't even have to come to the bank to do your transaction. If you look at our bank, 80% of the day-to-day transactions are done digital. Only 20% come to the branches. So it is moving towards that. So you need to be skilled, you need to know what it is, but that doesn't mean that, see, digitalized, if you are an IT graduate, you need to know in and out of it. If you are not, then know the basics, and that is something that you need, but you need to be able to think digitally. What can you do digitally? If you are doing day to day, see, the trend is um, there are mundane work, there are boring work, you say, adding one and two, and there are so many people doing that. Even salaries, commission payments, all those are manual work that are being done. So those can be digitalized to robotic automation. For an example, a robot can do it in seconds. What about 10, 15 people do work for about a month. That is a way forward. Now, that is a challenge for you to find jobs as well. You don't need so many employees now. So you have to be extra skilled to find a job in the future. And when you are selecting a career also, you should know what the future is going to be. And there are dying professions. A secretary's role is not there anymore. We don't have secretaries. So you don't need, because you have the computer, you will write your letter, print it, and then send it. Earlier there you had shorthand and all these typewriters, changing, all those you need to have a secretary. Today you don't have that. That job is gone. Very soon the accountant's role also will go off. So anybody can do their financials through a sort of a package.
So as the final question, I would like to combine two questions mentioned in the chat section. Somebody wants to know what are the strategies that you followed in making learning a success, and how would you advise a person to become a successful entrepreneur?
Right. Strategies used for learning is because you, as I told you earlier, you should ensure that you are properly prepared for the growth of your career. One is the attitude and how you work, the other is your background. See, once you might be a very hard worker, but if you are not qualified at the end of a period, your boss will say you are a great worker, but my next job requires a certain skill which you need to be qualified. Then you are frustrated. So you should always continue to study and to get the right qualification. Now that doesn't mean you have to do all the exams in the world. Right now you take your BSc, then are you going to do your MSc or you are going to do an MBA? Because those are the things, because there are a lot of young people who have done all this. It's not only one area. So you need to actually decorate yourself with qualifications, but don't take qualifications for the sake of doing it. First decide on where your interests are and then where you want to head. Based on that, acquire qualifications. But that doesn't mean you're not going to work. You have to have the attitude to work as well, but get yourself qualified. That is very important. And also do the right thing and be faithful. And also see, it's not only qualifications, it's the communication skills, the soft skills which are necessary. Now, I think although we are Sri Lankan, you can't survive with only Sinhala or Tamil, right? So you need to also learn English. That doesn't mean that you have to forget Sinhala. Sinhala is your mother tongue, and there's no sort of I mean, it's unjustifiable to say just because you know only Sinhala that you don't get a job. But finally, you're going to work in English. It's an international language, so you also need to learn. Now, if you say I'm Sinhalese and I don't want to learn English, or I'm Tamil, I don't want to learn English, you're not going to survive. So that's what the corporate world wants. So you need to have that. You need to speak English. Learning English is not only theory, right? You have to speak. You have to be able to speak up. But that doesn't mean moment you leave school or moment you take the degree you're best in English. My speaking was not like this when I was a 22-year-old. It improves. And you also need to අර සබකෝලේ නැති වෙන්න ඕන. You have to speak up. Because that is where when you go up, you will have to do presentations, you will have to, be confident in speaking to anybody. It could be boards, it could be top-end clients, financial control. You need to go and convince them. If you can't speak, then that's going to be a barrier for you. So there are no point in having 100 qualifications if you can't speak up and express yourself. That is very important. And what was the other question? Any other question you said?
Yes, sir. They wanted to ask how to become a successful entrepreneur.
All right. Okay. So entrepreneurship is. I'm not an entrepreneur. I've learned entrepreneurship, but that is the way forward. You should have the guts to do that. Now the difficulty is when you get a job and when you're comfortable. Now if you're getting a company maintained vehicle, you have all the allowances, the perks, the recognition. Even if you have the skills, you don't want to let go of those because you feel that starting a business on your own will not get the same benefits that I get now. But you need to be confident. I always promote being entrepreneurs. If you all have that skill, you can be on your own. Definitely do it. I mean that, but then again, it is discipline. The same basic principles that you had as a worker, what I spoke about. Don't take shortcuts. Now you can be an entrepreneur by doing an illegal business also. Don't do those. Even within that business, even if it's legal, don't do illegal things within that. Do the proper thing. Be a good taxpayer, and then recruit the right people. The marketing skills, if you have those, then I think the way forward is to be an entrepreneur. Because you always, I mean, today we have continuously worked for somebody else. But the same effort if you have put for yourself, you have been much richer. But take that right decision depending on your ability and the confidence.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Sanjay Pereira, for providing our audience with a lot of lifelong advices. And in the absence of any more questions, and since we are running out of time, we will now have to conclude the program for today. So now I would cordially invite Ms. Stephanie Pereira, the lecturer of the Department of Biomedical Science, to deliver the vote of thanks. Over to you, madam.
Thank you. Sorry, you're on mute.
Miss Stephanie, are you there?
Yes, sorry for that. Good morning, Mr. Sanjay Pereira, my fellow and my dear students. It is indeed a great pleasure and honor to deliver the vote of thanks on behalf of KIU at this virtual event. First, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude and thanks to our keynote speaker, Mr. Sanjay Pereira, Senior Vice President of NDB Bank. Mr.
Okay, it seems like Miss Stephanie is encountering a few technical issues. We'll hold on for a few minutes.
I'm extremely sorry for that. I think I had a connection issue. Dear sir, it was an honor to have you as our keynote speaker today, and thank you for the great insight and knowledge provided to our staff members and our students on developing attitudes and skills as a good employee and a leader. This will be surely beneficial for all of us in our future. We highly appreciate you for participating in this event by taking time off from your very busy and important schedule to educate and inspire all of us to become better individuals in our respective career paths. I would also like to extend a warm thank you to Ms. Dilhara Ratnayaka and her team for organizing a very fruitful event despite the current situation of our country, and for working around the clock for making this event a success. A special thank you also goes to Mr. Chandana Godaheva, Mr. Chandana Senadhir, and the fellow members of the IT department for the immense support extended in organizing and hosting this virtual event. Last but not least, a very big thank you goes to our staff members and students who are here with us today. Thank you for being an enthusiastic and a cooperative audience. I would like to end my thank you note with a saying by Warren Bennis, an American scholar and an author. It is the capacity to develop and improve their skills that distinguishes leaders from the followers. Thank you. Dear sir, kindly accept this virtual plaque as a token of our appreciation for the great contribution that you have done today through this virtual workshop in developing leadership skills and instilling good attitudes in our staff members and students.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Thank you, madam. I sincerely apologize for any other technical issues that are caused today, and I hope that you all got the maximum benefit out of this session today. And I'd kindly like to remind the audience to stay in touch with our social media pages, because we have a lot of virtual events, similar virtual events planned ahead for you. So for today, I would now conclude the Skill Up Leadership Program. Thank you for joining with us. Stay safe and have a nice day.